Welcome, Jovanka. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So, tell us about your brand new book, Reclaiming Wellness, and what inspired you to write this beauty. And please hold up and show that gorgeous book.
So this is
I
the
love it.
new book. It's called Reclaiming Wellness, Ancient Wisdom for Your Healthy, Happy, and Beautiful Life.
Love it.
I work as a health coach and a nutrition educator and herbalist. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I started to realize that a lot of the practices that were so pivotal in my life and my healing journey, but also that I recommend to a lot of my clients, were not being embraced by the vast majority of people out there, especially communities of color, the multicultural communities from around the country and around the world. And when you start thinking about them, you realize that the roots of most of these really popular practices today come from these communities of color. So the theory behind the book is, if I can get people inspired to learn about these practices and learn to love them and reclaim the wellness practices of their ancestry, then hopefully with it, they can also reclaim their rightful and natural state of wellness.
Love it. And what I also love is how you define wellness kind of in the book. So can you share with our listeners, like when you say wellness, what exactly are you referencing? Because one thing I think that's interesting over the years, I have, done some digging into wellness, and, there are up to like 10, probably even more types of wellness, right? So
Mm-hmm.
many types of wellness. And so what is your definition of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it means different things to different people, right? The reality of the matter is that wellness is a state of being in my book. It is just an energy, is a way of living. And if you're going to do it from a practical point of view, it's the actions that you take every single day to help you either maintain homeostasis, which is that natural, healthy state, or restore balance, either with mindfulness practices, with food, with supplements, with movement, with whatever practices you need to embrace every single day, so that you can either restore balance or maintain that natural, healthy state.
I love the restore and maintain, right? Because it's not like, oh, okay, I have wellness now. All's great in my world, right? It's like, no, it's as you say, like it's a daily choices
Oh, yeah.
sort of practice.
It technically, you can even go as far as saying it's hourly, right? Like we
Yes.
are affected by everything that happens in the news, by the food that we eat, by, the relationships we have with the people around us. So and our bodies are constantly changing and adapting to the environment around us. So we are very different people in the fall than we are in the summertime. And so that causes influxes on that balance. And so it's important that we also understand and learn to communicate with our bodies effectively, so that then we know what to give this amazing machine we call a body, so that it can stay happy for you for many decades.
Right, right. Yes. And I'm curious kind of because you did a lot of digging into the history, right, around wellness. And was there anything that was surprising to you that you came across?
Like I said, I think I always thought that these practices came from communities of color, but I wasn't really completely sold on it. I was like, is this really true? Yoga comes from India, but what about the rest? I was really surprised to learn about the ancient Egyptians. They had it going on. These civilization were so much more advanced than we actually know, and I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by not learning their history. I was really excited about learning how they embraced what we know today as hypnosis, for example. This idea of allowing your mind to control in a controlled way to get relaxed, and at the same time kind of change the way your behaviors are with this practice of meditation with a goal, if you will. And then the use of essential oils. As an herbalist, I love my essential oils. And they go way back, thousands and thousands of years ago. Simultaneously, the people in North Africa and the people in places like China and Southeast Asia were infusing these basic oils with herbs and other materials to create these teeny tiny things we know today as essential oils.
Love it. Isn't it fascinating, right? We're like, oh, we've discovered essential oils or whatever. And you're like, meanwhile, this has been going on for a while. I mean, you think about, right, with the story of Jesus, frankincense, myrrh. I mean, it's like these things have been around, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a perfect example, right? The little baby Jesus, the three kings came over and they brought in essential oils. I mean, they were that well revered back then.
Yes, I love that. That is like considered, at that time, right? Like such a big gift.
Right.
And it is.
Yeah.
And now we can buy them in these little tiny jars. Now you talk about preparation being key to success. And, this kind of makes me giggle because I think about, I recently led a virtual retreat and I was talking about how there's, preparation, like you want to make sure that you have your go-to kind of healthy items in the pantry or the refrigerator so that you don't have those breakdown moments, right? And I gave an example of my partner having gotten me like a bunch of Sour Patch Kids and I, ate the whole thing. And I'm like, you can't, like, that's not preparation. It was a sweet gift, but I have no self-control. Right. So, as you think about, right, preparation, whenever we think about as listeners here, how can I prepare for the most well life or the most well day or the most well week? Like, tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's certain things I don't bring into the house because I just know myself. And against that, I have no power. But I agree with you that we need to prepare. Otherwise, we will fail and we will feel really bad about failing. And then we'll fall off that proverbial bandwagon and go back to old habits that don't serve us. So to me, it's all about recognizing that we're all very busy, right? Like I have professionals that are mothers that are, full-time employees that are taking care of their families too at the same time. And it's like expecting somebody to, all of a sudden like cook a beautiful meal every day and do yoga for an hour and meditate for 20 minutes and take a bath once a week. It's not conducive. So if instead, I always ask my clients to find time in the weekend, maybe an hour of their time, to do two things. Number one, walk around the rooms in your house to find a space that you would call yours, right? Whether that is the bathroom or a tiny little nook in a bedroom, or if you have a big house, you might have another area. Maybe if you live in a warmer environment, you can sit outside. And then secondly, put it in writing, right? What is that you're going to do with that space? Does that mean perhaps that you have to wake up an extra 20 minutes early so that then you have the bathroom to yourself and you can spend time for self-care, doing whatever it is that you feel like? So you got to pick the one thing that you need the most so that you feel that you could benefit the most in the moment, and then find that time and that space. It's the easiest thing to do that is to do that on the weekends, and then put that in writing somewhere on your to-do list. If it's not on the to-do list, chances are it's not going to stay with us on the long term. We can just do it for a day or two and we feel like we can do this, we're powerful, we're strong, and then life happens. So give yourself the opportunity to plan ahead so that it can become a tool that will support you in that journey.
Yes, I love that. It must go on the to-do list. It must. It simply must. Yes.
I actually love my to-do lists.
They're so important. I wouldn't know who I am without my to-do list, right? Or, it's just so helpful. But, even from like the wellness angle, wellness planning, I mean, for some people, meal planning is really important. Or like for me, I like to go through and at the beginning of every month, like I set my ballet schedule for the month of like, which classes am I going to take and when, right? So this idea of preparation is so important because if I didn't do that, life would fill up and then there would not be that space, right? And for certain people, if they didn't do their meal planning, they wouldn't know what to eat.
Especially women, we are givers, right? We're very mothering, even not just to our children, but to everything and anything outside of us. And it's that same story. I know it's age old and we are sick of hearing it, but that whole idea of putting the mask on first and then before you help others. The truth of the matter is that because we are such givers, we need to take some of that energy back. That energy that's ours. We're not actually depleting somebody else's. We're just taking that energy back so that we can be replenished.
Such a good reminder.
Yeah.
So tell us about herbalism and your favorite herbs. Maybe like some that you're like, you must go out and get this tonight.
Yes. So herbs are my second love. My first love was music. My second love were herbs. When I was, before I started working in this kind of line of work, I was in the corporate world and I got very sick and unfortunately, Western medicine didn't have a solution for me. So I went elsewhere. That's when I discovered things like Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, shamanism, the medicines, the plant medicines of North, Central, and South America. All of these cultures from all over the world, North Europe, all the way down to the Patagonia, they always use plants to help us heal. And then when I started to use them, I realized two very important things. They were incredibly easy and safe to use. And they actually, you can feel the action relatively quickly. So you become a convert, right? It's a lot easier. And I see this with my clients all the time. People come to me with pain and discomfort, and they've tried everything else. And I put them on a particular protocol. They start feeling better in a matter of a week or two. And it's a lot easier once you're not in pain to now accept other lessons, right? And the same thing happened to me. So to this day, I've been learning about herbalism through Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, and Western herbalism for 15 years. And I cannot say better things about them. And then if you were to ask me what my favorites are, it would be very hard to make a decision, but I will pick one. I would say it would be ginger, mostly because it's warming. It's so very grounding, and for my constitution, it's very needed. Like I'm always cold. It helps with digestion. I had a lot of digestive issues, so it's very calming. It helps you digest it. It reduces nausea. It's really great for pain. It's just a fantastic little root that is ubiquitous. Everybody can find it almost anywhere. It's very easy to incorporate, and it's wonderful.
What's your favorite way to use ginger? I was using it for a while by just putting little slivers into my morning hot water with lemon.
Yes, so that's a great point. Remember, there's certain parts of the plant that we use in herbalism. And the softer the part of the plant, the easiest it will be to break down the nutrients or the oils of that particular part of the plant. In the case of ginger, because it's a root, it's hard, it needs to be decocted. What that means is that ideally you want to slice it or cut it in pieces and then add it to hot water and let it sort of boil or go into that very hot water for at least 5 to 7 minutes. Until the water becomes a different color, yellow or greenish, depending on the type of ginger root that you're picking. Normally what I do, because that also is labor, what I normally do is I make a big thing of ginger root tea, as much as 5 or 6 cups. And then leave it in the refrigerator. And then every morning when I'm having either my cup of tea or my water with lemon and cayenne pepper, I'll add 1 or 2 ounces of that ginger water, that infused water. And it's the best way to do that.
That sounds amazing. I'm like salivating just thinking about it. And I love the cayenne pepper added to the hot water with lemon.
Yeah, it's actually also very warming. It's expectorating, especially at if we are talking about spring and fall, Cayenne pepper will be really great for those people that have a lot of congestion in the morning because of allergies, because it's an expectorant and it actually helps you dry up that excessive amount of mucus.
Very good. Thank you. Good to know. And then talk about the importance of going within. So you speak to this in the book. And what exactly do you mean by that? And how would you encourage our listeners to go within?
So the concept of going within is this idea that our emotional home / spiritual home is an integral part of our wellness journey, right? Just like social interactions are incredibly important. It's not just eating healthy and moving and working out every day. All these other parts are a part of the whole. So when it comes to going within, to me, it's about finding ways that you can become one with your mental home, not to control it, but to understand it and to allow yourself to accept the parts that you are working hard on, like you're hustling to become better at, and then supporting the parts that are already in balance. So one of the examples that I give in the book is, if you already have a wonderful spiritual practice, you do prayer on a regular basis, you go to church or to a mosque or whatever religious practice you follow, and you don't need to worry about that is strong in you, that is amazing. Now let's work on your emotional home, right? What about your emotions need a little strengthening or a little supporting? Perhaps you are prone to anger. Maybe you don't like yourself and you self-talk about, and do smack talking about your appearance on a regular basis. That part of you might need to work a little bit on a little bit more. And then I mentioned a handful of practices: visualization, meditation, and hypnosis as a way to help you strengthen that part of yourself.
Beautiful. And with the visualization, can you speak to that a little bit? And how somebody might use that to get better at kind of going within and becoming more self-aware and connected.
Yeah, I love visualization because it's something that we all do naturally. We are natural daydreamers. It's relatively easy for us to, when you're brushing your teeth, for example, in the morning, you're already thinking about, I gotta make my cup of coffee and make my little breakfast, whatever it might be. So you're visualizing that, right? This is something, it's almost factual for you. You know it's factual because it happens every single day, so you don't question it. So if you take that same analogy with other parts of your life, say, for example, you are looking to find a mate, the love of your life, and you feel like, you've been dating, this is not going well, it's hard, I don't feel like I will ever get there, or I'm feeling a little bit anxious about the prospect. And that part of your daydreaming is negative all the time. It just becomes a little bit harder for you to then go out there and do what you need to do actively. So if instead you take that same analogy of like, I'm just going to, every morning or every night before I go to bed, I'm going to visualize this life that I want, meeting this person, what they look like, what are their personality traits, what do they do for a living, what are the things that will make me a great partner to them, and vice versa. And then you see them like it's in a movie right in front of you. You go on dates, you enjoy life together, you go on trips, you get married, you have children, as if it's already here, literally like you're watching a movie. And you don't question it at the beginning. It's hard. It's very hard, much easier said than done. But the idea of visualization is that you do it regularly, every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And on average, us humans will take about 21 to 28 days to build a new habit. So if you do that same visualization exercise for those 21 to 28 days, hopefully at the end, it has been ingrained in your subconscious mind enough that you're strengthened and feeling powerful to then go out there and hustle, right? Because it's not just about the daydreaming part, but you just want to empower that emotional part of you so that then you feel strong enough to go out there and do the parts that you need to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. the visualizing, because you're right, it's not just daydreaming. We got to like take some action too. But once we have a better like idea of what it is we want, then it's like, okay, how do we move toward that?
We have a lot of clarity, right? We know exactly what we want when we practice it. It's almost like learning how to ride a bike or an instrument. At first, you have no idea what you're doing, but after a few months, you know how to do things. And then it will be easiest at that moment to, do what you need to do, whether it is tell your friends, I'm looking for a mate. Do you have friends too? Whatever it might be. There is an easier process. You don't feel that desperation or that anxiety and sadness that comes from not having clarity about your dreams.
And, I'm curious because one of the things you speak to in the book is about people feeling busy and overscheduled, right? Which is, everyone I know and probably most people, And so I'm curious, what advice do you have for those who are just feeling like, oh my gosh, where do I find time to visualize or go shopping for ginger? Do you know what I mean?
I love that question because it's true. We're all really busy and life happens. I would say, the book mentions 7 areas of wellness, and within those areas, you have several different practices that you can pick and choose. But obviously, it's not all about taking all of them at the same time. My suggestion is, number 1, find the one thing you feel most called to or that you feel like you need the most, right? And then make a plan. It would be number 2. We talked about this a few minutes ago. Make a plan, like based on this is the one that I need the most. I'm going to make a plan as to how to implement it in my already busy life. If I realize that this is a little too much for me now, I'm just going to take a step back and find something else. Because the vast majority of us could easily find 3 or 4 things on this book that you could utilize. If you happen to be using all 7 of them, then wonderful. That's amazing. Then I would recommend you to pass the book on to somebody who might need it. But the vast majority of us could actually find 1 or 2 and then implement it one at a time. Slowly but steadily we go. And then eventually, once we get used to it's part of our, our routines, those 21 to 28 days, then we can move on and tack and, stack on other practices until we find the right combination that we need.
Yeah. It just makes me think, as you said, that like habit stacking, right? Like say you want to make sure you're taking your multivitamin every day and you always forget. It's like, okay, well, can I put my vitamins by something I do every day, like my morning cup of tea or by my toothbrush, right? Most people brush their teeth every day, so it's like this way to like stack on, these things that you want to have in your life. Can you add it to something you're already doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you're saying. Like right now, my stack of, supplements that I take are a little bit further in front of me than the rest of them. They're not in the cabinet tucked in because I will forget them otherwise. And again, if you have a list, I mean, it will vary from person to person, but in my case, I even put on my to-do list the times when I need to take my meditation and then take my probiotics, which happen almost simultaneously on an empty stomach. So they happen to live on my night table. I take them even before I brush my teeth. By the time I'm done brushing my teeth and taking my shower, those probiotics have already worked wonders in my digestive tract, and I can go and have my breakfast and not have to worry about like, oh, I forgot to take my probiotics. I fell off that proverbial bandwagon once again.
Yeah, I have to take a thyroid pill first thing in the morning, right before you eat or drink. So it's like, yeah, have it right by your bed. So it's like, okay, let me take that because then after this, I get to have tea and my little matcha bar, right? But not until I take this pill, which is perfect, kind of with regard to the probiotics also. So let me ask you this: what do you feel like is the main thing that you hope readers will take away from your book, or even listeners from today's podcast?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking that. I would say that what I want people to know the most is that these practices are part of their ancestry, that they, regardless of what you look like and where your family comes from, chances are your ancestors used some of these practices. So they're your birthright. They are part of you, and you would not only honor your own body and your own well-being, but your ancestors when you actually embrace them. And the second thing that I would say is that they do not have to break the bank. They do not have to take a lot of energy and resources. You can incorporate some of them, most of them, with little resources, just with a little bit of planning and a little bit of time.
Beautiful. It's all about preparation, right?
It's
All comes back to preparation.
This podcast should be called All About Preparation.
Totally. Well, this leads me to my last question, Jovanka, which is the name of the podcast is Tranquility du Jour, right? So how do you, as a wellness expert, find tranquility in your everyday?
That is the age-old question, right? Well, it depends on the day. But for the most part, I only find I wake up in the morning and it's hard for me to actually meditate or, do my thing. I normally do like a little 5-minute breathing meditation exercise. All that does is energizes me. So it doesn't actually give me that tranquility. I find the tranquility at the end of the day. When I brush my teeth, I'm still awake. I'm still very alert. And I want to shut my brain a little bit to allow myself to rest. I shut down every light in the house. And then I listen to a meditation that I've been listening to now for about, maybe about 15 months. And it's the same exact meditation. It's a guided meditation, 10 minutes, all about allowing myself to accept the messages from my guides. Because it is hard for me to sleep. I tend to wake up in the night a few times a night. And so that puts me in a place where I am accepting the rest and understanding that rest is important. Because like many women, I could go on and on and on. And then I'm too wired to then have a proper rest. And so those are the 10 minutes of tranquility. And they have been really good at helping me fall asleep and stay asleep.
Beautiful. Yes. Guided meditations. So lovely. And I love that you do it at the end of the day. You're right. Because sometimes when you wake up, you're just like, I got to get going, right? I got things to do. And so it can be harder, I think, for some people to start their day grounding, even though I think it's a beautiful concept. For some people, it may be easier to do that in the evening. So thank you.
Especially if you're a mother and you have children running around before you even wake up, like that's unfortunately not a time for you to find tranquility.
No. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Jovanka. It's been a total treat, and congrats on your beautiful new book.
Here it is again. Thank you, Kimberly, for having me. It's been amazing.